As I think all of you know, the president has said that he does want to continue Jerome Powell as head of the U.S. Federal Reserve. And many people ask the significance of that. There's always a certain amount of concern about a new head of the Fed in terms of what a new head of the Fed would do, and therefore a certain comfort in the old one being reappointed. I'm just going to say to you that if you've heard me in the past, pretty much any time ever, I've been derogatory about heads of central banks. I basically believe that the role is one that is bigger than the person, that the role is one that formulates the person, and that the person's actually not so terribly important. If you expect someone to be a great head of the Fed, you should probably get over it. If you expect them to be a terrible head of the Fed, you should probably get over it. The fact is they tend to be fairly vanilla, and they tend to do a lot of stupid stuff because that's what the function is. William McChesney Martin was the head of the Fed longer than anyone else ever in U.S. history in the period of the 50s up into 1968, and had a famous line that was popular when I was young, 50 years ago, which was that when you become the head of the Fed, you take a little pill and it makes you forget everything you ever knew, and it lasts just as long as you're head of the Fed. I think Martin's little pill is actually one that lasts longer than when they're head of the Fed, because after they're head of the Fed, they tend to not ever think they made a mistake. But the fact is, it's really hard to find central bankers that aren't made by their times as opposed to them making the times. And Jerome Powell, he hasn't been a terrible head of the Fed. He hasn't been a great head of the Fed. He's made a lot of mistakes. They all do. It's the nature of the beast, because the role, and not just our central bank, the Federal Reserve, the same is true, in my opinion, for all major central banks. They tend to have the role dominate the person, not the person dominate the role. And in that, if the president hadn't appointed Jerome Powell, there would have been a certain consternation about who he might have picked instead. And this is always something people get all the titter about. But after that person was in the saddle, if you will, they'd get used to that person and there'd be no more fears. The role is one that is more dominant than the person. You should not expect anything great or bad to happen because of Jerome Powell in the saddle as head of the Federal Reserve. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to my consistent, droll, fairly negative view about the role of central bank heads. Subscribe to the Fisher Investment YouTube channel if you like what you've seen. Click the bell to be notified as soon as we publish new videos.